Welcome to the new Dark Steel Mask hyper build. In this video I will show you that we don't even need the Bighorn bow to create a hyper build that is doing the same crazy things than the original hyper build. Of course, if you want to, then you can still use the Bighorn bow to make it even better than that. We can also assassinate mercenaries with a normal assassination at any daytime from any direction, like in the original build. We have the 0 frame instant charge devastating hyper shots, we have insane amounts of damage, and we have the invincibility whenever we need them. This build is crazily overpowered, and it is the original hyper build I wanted to show you before the Bighorn bow was found. It also uses the Dark Steel Mask, but that is no problem because most of you got it in June, and if you missed it, then of course I will show you a replacement for it. But first let's take a look at the damage values. With the Ghost Arrows of Artemis you will get around 3.5 million damage, with the Devastating Shot you will get around 4.3 million, and with the Predator Shot you will get up to 6 million damage. And since we don't use the Bighorn bow, we can also use the Overpower shots in this build, which will deal over 7 million damage. The warrior abilities with Ring of Chaos have around 900,000 damage, Fury of the Bloodline has 3.2 million damage, and an Overpower animation cancel can have up to 6 million damage. Here we have 5.6 with the Blunt, and when we attack Polemarchs from behind with an Overpower animation cancel, we will get even 4 times the amount of damage. Here we got 26 million in just a single hit. Of course, we can also overrun mercenaries from any direction. That is really safe. We have so much damage that there's not even a single merc that should escape your attack. Hero strikes will also be around 5 million damage, and rush assassination of course is no problem on normal enemies, and you will safely hit any mercenary with rush assassination no matter what. The maximum activation damage from the RS Madness ability is over 12 million damage overnight from behind. Normally it is around 8 million damage and around 1.8 million damage for the attacks. But when you hit the Polemarch from behind you can get even 35 million damage, again using the Polemarch glitch, which amplifies your damage by a factor of 4. In order to do that glitch you have nothing else to do than simply attack a Polemarch from behind, then you get insane amounts of damage from it. Before we check out the gear, make sure you check out the membership perks. You can support me via Patreon or with the YouTube membership to get build advice, wallpapers and private chat rooms. And special thanks to my superfans Black Susano for your incredible, insane support, and to Grateful Golem, you are the best mod in the world. Thank you so much. In the inventory we have 67,000 hunter damage and 570,000 assassin damage, and a little bit of warrior damage as well. So this build is mainly focused on assassin primarily and on hunter as secondary. However, if you have the Bighorn bow, then of course you can increase your warrior damage by a factor of 1.6 to have much more than that. The main build version is mainly focused on dagger and dagger damage, but I will also show you a build where we increase our blunt damage here when we want to play with the blunt. There will also be 2 defensive variants. I will show you them right after we went through the main build here. If you want to know the damage per engraving and the engraving ranking for this build, then check out the description. I will not show them here in the video because they are not representative. When you make only a single focus build you have to focus more on weapon damage and elemental damage. That's not the case here. We focus more on critical damage because we want to make an universal all-in hyper build with lots of additional stuff. On the left melee weapon we use the Atlantean Blade with hunter damage, 50% critical damage, 30% armor penetration, and we engrave 100% damage but health capped to 25%. The Atlantean Blade is one of the best daggers in the game because it already has the armor penetration, which is one of the best engravings for warrior and hunter. It increases your damage by around the same amount than the 100% damage increase from the Falx of Olympus. So this weapon allows us to use both of the 2 most important damage drivers here on a single weapon, and that will save us an additional engraving slot. For the right melee weapon we use the Minotaur Mace. It has 23% assassin damage and 100% critical damage while full health. This is only a blue weapon, but it is the only weapon in the game that has 100% critical damage at full health on it. So this weapon is one of the most powerful weapons in the game. It's even in the top 10 of my most powerful weapons video. And we will engrave the convert 50% hunter damage because we use a lot of hunter items here, and that will give us much assassin damage in return. You can get this weapon when you complete the fake Minotaur questline in Pevka. You have to complete the What Lies Below the Surface quest. For our bow we use the Achilles bow because it has one of the best suitable perks here for this specific hyper build. It has hunter damage, it has already 10% crit chance on it, and it has 20% damage with devastating shot. The devastating shot scales per charge state, so when you have maximum charge every time you shoot, then you have the maximum damage for devastating shots, and amplifying devastating shots even further is then the best option for this build. And on top of that, we can engrave bow charging speed here on the Achilles bow because we already have the 10% crit chance on it. When we use the Oaken Bow of Chambers instead, then we would have to engrave the 10% crit chance, and we could not make a 100% bow charging speed build of it. So the Oaken Bow is not an option. Another option would maybe the Bandit Bow if you have it. There you also have 10% crit chance on it. For our headgear, surprise surprise, we use the Darksteel mask. The Darksteel mask was on sale at Sargon's shop during the end of June, and it is a unique item because it is the only headgear which has 100% critical damage at full health. It has hunter damage primary, 100% critical damage at full health, and 10% all damage on it. And when we use it here, we have to engrave 20% critical chance at full health. You can only get the Darksteel mask from Olympian gifts, you cannot get them from looting or blacksmith or from the shop, so that's a really unique item. But if you don't have it, you can still make this build. Simply choose the defensive variant 1, there I show you a different helmet you can use. For our bracers we use the Arms of the Sphinx. This is a unique item again, it has hunter damage, the only arms with bow charging speed on it, and we engrave 100% critical damage at full health on it. So only with the Arms of the Sphinx we are even able to get to 100% bow charging speed in this game. Without this item, this would entirely not be possible. Then to compensate the loss of crit chance on the arms, we also use the Belt of the Sphinx. That is also a unique item. It has hunter damage, 20% critical chance while full health, the only belt in the game which has 20% critical chance at full health, and we also engrave 100% critical damage at full health. So we compensate the loss of crit chance to get our bow charging speed. That's why we use these two unique yellow items here in this build. We don't use the complete set because the rest of the items are not good, and we also don't need the set bonus. We can get much better epic items like the Darksteel mask, a custom torso, and a custom boots, which are much better. On the torso we have hunter damage, critical damage, 20% bow charging speed, and we engrave another hunter damage. Of course you could also option for another warrior or assassin damage, but we will get 10% out of that hunter damage for the other types anyway. And then on the boots we have hunter damage, another bow charging speed, 100% critical damage while full health, and we engrave 20% crit chance while full health. Of course you don't have to have the engravings in this order. What matters is that you have all three, and when you are missing one, then simply engrave what is missing on your item. For the main build we then have the following stats: 296% warrior damage, 390% assassin, and 362% hunter damage. We also have 30% damage with daggers and blunts, depends on what you want to use, and then we have 100% critical chance at full health and a whopping 775% critical damage. That is a really insane amount, even more than you would ever dream of. It's enough to critical hit every mercenary here in the game. We have also a little bit of fire damage, 60%, and then we have 99.6% bow charging speed. That is exactly what you want, because then you have one frame and it instantly charges at full charge state. When you have it at exactly 100%, the behavior starts to get a bit weird with the instantly charging. It doesn't really narrow down the crosshairs anymore, so I strongly recommend to go for only 99.6%. If you want to play with blunts rather than with daggers, then of course you can replace the torso with one that has hunter damage, damage with heavy blunts, critical damage, and bow charging speed. That way you have over 60,000 damage with your blunt, and of course you can also swap your weapon so that you have your blunt on the left side. Then you have even more damage because your left weapon is always a little bit stronger than your right. Please also don't forget to adjust your mastery points accordingly. So when you play with daggers, invest your mastery points into daggers. When you play with the blunt version, then invest your points into damage with heavy blunts. In my proposed defensive variant 1, you should replace the Darksteel mask, and also when you don't have it, you can replace the Darksteel mask with a helmet that has hunter damage, critical damage, 20% crit chance while full health, and then you can engrave the Become ISO enhanced engraving from the Decaster set from the Atlantis DLC. This engraving will automatically make you invincible for 15 seconds when you get hit. You will not be killed by any sudden arrow or sudden hit that came out of nowhere. This engraving will protect you, you will still get the damage, but you cannot be killed in this 15 seconds. Another much more defensive variant would be when you use the Oxesia's Helm of Darkness, which was also available at the end of June in the same weeks and the Darksteel mask was available. The Oxesia's Helm of Darkness has a warrior damage, 30% melee resistance and damage with daggers, which fits well when you want to play with daggers in this build, and you can engrave 20% crit chance at full health. And then you also go for 30% melee resistance on the arms as well as on the belt. You can complement that with 10% melee resistance in your mastery points. But then you will drop to 475% critical damage. That's 300% critical damage loss when you go for the full melee resistance variant. Of course, you will no longer take any damage from melee attacks, but I would certainly recommend to use the ISO enhanced engraving on the helmet, the defensive variant 1, then you have much more critical damage. The Oxesia's Helm of Darkness returns every 42 weeks with the weekly mercenaries, and it was last available at the end of June, so that was 3 weeks ago, so you have to wait 39 weeks from the date where the video was made. You can also refer to the mercenary returning scheme. There are 21 mercenaries, so when you have a mercenary that is close to the Oxesia, then you have to wait only a few weeks. When you are far away from it, then you better off make another build variant. I've really tried to make a very good low point variant here for you, but it still needs 192 points. Of course, if you would drop some points here and there in the masteries, you can still save a couple of them, but you can easily get these points anyway. When you just complete the game, level up to 99, then complete the DLC, complete all tombs, you will have around 180 points anyway, and that's very close to the amount you need for this build. This is pretty much a 3-way hybrid build, so we have to go for a lot of abilities here. First of all, a Sixth Sense that is slowing down time for additional 8 seconds. That really helps when you make a frontal assassination, when you run towards your mercenaries and kill them, and it also doubles your hunter damage. Then you should go for Arrow Master to unlock either the fire or poison arrows to get the free fire or poison damage here from the abilities. You can use multi-shot if you want, it's a really good ability, but the most important one is a devastating shot. It really has a very good synergy effect. With instant charge shots you will be automatically at 400% instead of having to wait to charge it from 200 to the 400%. You only get the maximum 400% when your shot is fully charged, and that fits perfectly into our build. You can go for the Predator shot, it deals even more damage here with 600%, but it is also harder to use. So maybe if you are not so familiar and don't like the Predator shot, then just go for the Devastating shot and that's fine. Then of course go for Archery Master, it refills your first adrenaline segment, gives you more hunter damage and more headshot damage. Since we don't use the Bighorn bow, which is kind of bugged together with the Overpower bow strike, you can now safely use it. It will deal the most damage from all your hunter attacks, up to 7 million damage in this build. And don't forget to use the Ghost Arrows of Artemis. They not only pierce walls, they also pierce shields, so very good versus Athenians. Then get the passive abilities here, Weapons Master for the crit chance, for the warrior damage, Gear Master, then 1 point here on flaming attacks just to unlock the fire mastery. Of course you can also make it a poison build when you go for venomous attacks and then unlocks the poison mastery. That gives you 25% poison damage, but here with the fire mastery we have 40% fire damage, which I personally prefer. Go for the overpower attacks, they are really awesome. And then most important, when you have Battle Cry, enhance it to make it Ares Madness. With Ares Madness you get the glowing spear that deals an insane amount of damage, and you can also use the Ares Madness glitch, which deals a 7 times amount of activation damage when you use it in the Greek main world. Don't forget to get the other good warrior abilities here. Fury of the Bloodline from the Legacy of the First Blade will refill your adrenaline very quickly. Then Ring of Chaos and also Second Wind to refill your health. Then in the Assassin tree of course we go for Shadow Assassin for additional assassin damage and for the 50% critical damage. Then get at least 1 or 2 points on Rush Assassination, go for Hero Strike and also use Stealth Master for the 10% additional combat damage overnight. I've created two different melee wheels here. On the first one I have the RS Madness, Hero Strike and Rush Assassination, and on the second one I have Fury, Ring of Chaos and also Rush Assassination, both with the health refill perk at the top. In the mastery section here, we don't go for the hunter damage. Of course, if you have enough points, then you can still go for the hunter damage, but I wanted to make it here with as less points as possible. 4% critical chance here, so 12 points on that, 12 points on critical damage, also 12 points on headshot damage, and then we use 15 points on bow charging speed. So in the low point variant, you only have 98% bow charging speed, which is absolutely okay. That gives you 1 or 2 frames instead of 1 frame. Then in the warrior tab, go for armor penetration. Then in the assassin tab, go for 15 points on assassin damage, 15 points on critical chance while full health, 15 points on critical damage, and also 12 points on damage while full health. That is pretty okay, and you should be able to overrun any mercenaries. To be safe, just go for another 12 points here on damage and elites and bosses, and then you will be fine. In my personal full point variant, I didn't make any big change here on the abilities, but of course I maxed out all the relevant mastery categories here for this build. First of all, 20 points here on hunter damage, then max out crit chance, crit damage, headshot damage, even damage when bow charge shot, and bow charging speed at 19 points, even damage on distant targets. We get a couple of adrenaline, and then we amplify our devastating shot. On the warrior tab we have warrior damage, then if you want to play with blunts, then you can go for the damage with heavy blunts. If not, then simply use the damage with daggers. We go for maximum fire damage, maximum armor penetration, and that's it here for the warrior tab. We go in the assassin tab, and there we have 15 points on damage whenever time is slowed down, maximum assassin damage. When you want to play with daggers, then here go for the dagger damage, crit chance and crit damage while full health, the normal damage while full health. We spread a couple of points here on the adrenaline stuff, and then we also max out damage on elites and bosses. I hope you really like this build. That was meant not to be a bighorn build at all, but you can of course use the bighorn bow, make it even better if you want, or just simply go for the original hyper build. Please don't forget to subscribe, leave me a like, and see you next time.